We will now call the meeting of the Waco City Council on December 2nd, 2025 to order at 3:02 PM. Welcome to the work session of the Waco City Council. Welcome to all the people gathered here today in the Bosque Theater Gallery here in beautiful downtown Waco. Welcome to all the viewers watching at home on the Waco City Cable Channel. Thank you all for joining us here today. I'm Mayor Jim Holmes. I'm joined on the dais here this afternoon by our council members, Josh Borderud, Darius Ewing, George Chase, and Mayor Pro Tem Andrea Bearfield. Isabella Zano is going to be a little late. She said she'd be here around 3:30, 3:40. I'm also joined on the adjacent dais over there by senior city staff. We've got Assistant City Manager Ryan Holt present with us today. We've got City Attorney Kristen Hamilton-Karam, and we have City Secretary Michelle Hicks also. So we got a full house here today as soon as Isabel arrives. So we're going to start the meeting today with a moment of silence. Okay, first item today will be recognition of work session speakers. Is there anyone present who would like to speak on a work session agenda item? We do have one card. And so at this time, I will say the caveat language here. We provide an opportunity to the public to address the city council on any agenda item during the public comments portion of the agenda. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you're here to speak and have not filled out the registration card, please see the city secretary staff at the registration table outside of the auditorium to provide registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of the presentation, and staff will distribute those to the council. If you're unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. When called to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Each speaker must limit comments to 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group of 10 or more individuals present, please have those persons stand at the beginning of your comments, and you'll be given 10 minutes to address the council. Please note that if you stand in support of a person getting 10 minutes to speak, you are forfeiting your right to speak on that item. For any person addressing the council through the use of a translator, the speaking time will be doubled to accommodate the translation services. While public discourse is very important to the council, we have to maintain order in the meetings so that all persons may be heard and city business may be conducted. If so directed by me, the Sergeant at Arms shall remove from the council meeting any person who, while addressing the city council or while attending the city council meeting, makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, becomes boisterous, or makes unauthorized remarks from the audience, claps hands, stomps feet, whistles, yells, or makes similar demonstrations. So we got one card here this afternoon from Carl Giles. Mr. Giles? Here you are. Okay, great. As you get to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. When you get here, you'll have 3 minutes to address council. Good afternoon, Mr. Giles.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Giles. I live at 1024 Turner Street, Waco, Texas, 76704. And I'm here to speak on the tax system. And I've been talking with Ms. Blackman about the issue. And after doing the numbers, it would be naive for me to ask you to reduce it, stop it, or discontinue it because I saw the money that it generated. And the purpose of it, supposedly, was to kind of motivate the people to pay the bill if they had a 2 months bill. I'm a victim of that tax system myself. Sometimes I forget to pay the water bill, and sometimes I don't have it at the time. And Ms. Blackman indicated that the tax system is kind of more of a way to get you out there and see if you can get that money. So I understand that. And we talked about where the tax system is most used. And the money that's generated in certain areas. And Ms. Black and myself agreed that majority of money generated from those tax systems from low-income communities. So as I said in the beginning, I'm not asking you to do away with the tax system, but supposedly it was told to me about what that money is used for as far as streets and what have you. So I was told that I can't talk about the streets because I came here to talk about the tax, but the two kind of intermeans to me. And just recently, I had my street repaired. And in fact, a couple of days ago. But my neighbor was in the need of the same repair right across the street. And all I'm saying is that if low income generating that much money, why can't we get the services? I don't have a curve. Everybody with the city was talking about, well, you can't have a curve, you can't have a curve. Don't need a curve. Just want the streets to fix the way they should be, which they weren't. And that's my main reason for being here. I'm not trying to tell you to do away with the tax, but if you're gonna maintain the tax system and realizing where the most money is generated, why can't you provide better services for those for that population? Streets. I live in an area, well, right across the street. I have photos, but I was told that I have to have 9 copies. Right across the street, there's a lot, trees have grown up to about maybe 10 or 15 feet from the front of the lot. The city pays contractors to come over there and cut that. I don't know anybody that's sitting on that city council that would live next door where trees have grown.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. 3 minutes is up. Can you wrap it up?
I'm just saying, if the low-income people are providing the most money for that tax system, then we should receive a fair amount of services generated by that tax system, like our streets and our alleyways and what have you, which is not being done.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. I appreciate your comments. We'll be talking about this IR here in a little bit. Is there anyone else present who'd like to speak on a work session agenda item this afternoon? Seeing no other requests to speak, we'll now recess the regular session and convene into the work session with a report from the Assistant City Manager, Ryan Holt.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and welcome to those joining us in the audience and online. We have a couple of changes to the agenda. The first on item 2025-862 and what was to be discussion of events at the Foster Pavilion and McLean Stadium. The scheduled presenter, Jason Cook, Baylor's Chief Communications Officer, had a last-minute matter and will be unable to join us. We'll bring that presentation back to you at a later meeting. On item 2025-892 is an ordinance related to the establishment of the Arts and Culture Commission. Kristen, the city attorney, has provided a corrected copy at your places, and she'll read that into the record later in the meeting. And then item 2025-883 will need to be pulled from the consent agenda and voted on separately because it's a matter of eminent domain. Mayor, if it pleases you and the council, I'll go on to employee recognitions. Yep. Multiple city departments have qualified already this year as honorary Santa's elves and have been hard at work preparing the holiday season and helping spread cheer throughout Waco. This week, crews have been finishing holiday decorations across key areas of downtown, City Hall, Heritage Square, Bridge Street, and the Waco Convention Center, all being outfitted with lights and seasonal decor ahead of this weekend's Waco Wonderland festivities. This year, our large holiday tree is now a showpiece in the Sturgis Fountain in front of City Hall, and we're going to add 2 additional trees in Heritage Square to complement the main one, creating a true trifecta of holiday greenery. Jonathan Cook assures me the display will be absolutely tremendous. Annual tree lighting is set for Friday evening, followed by what I think is the year's best fireworks show at Waco Wonderland. It's expected to draw more than 20,000 people throughout the weekend with Saturday's community parade, holiday performances, a vendor market featuring small businesses, the Ferris wheel, and always popular Snow Tube Hill. Cameron Park's Zoo Wildlights experience is also now glowing for the season, offering dazzling displays for visitors of all ages. And I was able to go over there with my family and enjoyed that very much. Across the community, crews from Public Works, Waco PD, Waco Fire, and others will be traveling through the neighborhoods and parks in their holiday cheer vehicles to bring the season directly to residents. And throughout the city, departments are hosting festive programs in libraries and community centers, along with food and toy drives supporting local families, including a Food for Families drive that more than doubled last year's collection by employees and saw 3,309 pounds of food collected and donated. Pet Circle will also be offering holiday pet adoptions for anyone hoping to welcome a new furry family member this season. And moving on, there are 3 informal reports today. 2025-859 is provided by the Director of Customer Engagement, Lisa Tyre. We included this IR after a member of public, Mr. Giles, asked for some of the data around the tagging process that the City of Waco utilizes for utility accounts that are in danger of service disruption. Lisa is here in case council has any questions related to that IR.
Thank you, ACM Holt. I did have a few questions. Mr. Giles has been talking about this for a while now, and what I'm curious about is, has it been consistently more beneficial to do it this way? I mean, I saw the data, but from where we are now, as opposed to when we started the program, do you think it's helping?
Yeah, I think right now it still is a very physical reminder. If we relied on a phone system, we have to hope we have the right phone number, and that somebody checked their messages. If we rely on text, it's the same issue. If we send out an email, again, it's the same issue. Do we have the most up-to-date information? But when we physically place that tag on your door, you've got something, plus we take a picture to show that we actually did it. And so I think in that sense, it is a more sure way that we've made that communication gap. That we've reached you and that you know that this is impending.
And just to estimate, what is about the timeline of payment once the resident gets a tag?
Most people will come in the very next day and pay.
Okay.
They've got another whole day before anything's going to happen. So most people come in and tag. We tag roughly annually a little less than 5% of all our accounts, and we cut off about 0.07, so less than 1% of the accounts actually get cut. So you can see that it's a pretty effective gap.
Is it possible to consider maybe an opportunity that the fee gets waived if it's paid within 48 hours?
I mean, anything's possible. There is a cost to what we do.
Sure, of course.
So I think in that turn, a tag costs anywhere from $18 to about $22 by the time you look at the number of people involved. So before we even tag you, we run a list the day before. Somebody goes through that list to make sure we haven't overlooked a note that was on the account. The account maybe was supposed to be held for some other reason. A lot of times when people get tagged, they either call in and they want a payment plan or they want an extension. So there's that time involved there. Then before we actually issue the tag again that morning, we rerun that list to just make sure we haven't overlooked anything. And then we issue those tags.
No, I understand. I was just trying to see if there was any way to keep the program if it's working. And we understanding the number of hands that have to touch it in order to make it through, but offer an opportunity to maybe slightly ease a burden on our residents, because people who can pay their bills on time pay their bills on time. Usually, I mean, I know we all forget stuff, and
So
somebody has run across the pink bill, and you're like, "Oh my God, my bad, I forgot that."
So 66% of our accounts do not pay on the due date, by the due date.
Okay, that's more than half. So yeah,
That doesn't mean they get tagged, it just means they're not paying when the
Sure.
bill is due.
sure. Okay.
And so one of the new features on our new system that we have is the ability for people to have their own reminders set. So they can set a reminder that says, I want to be notified, I want you to remind me 2 days in advance of when my bill is due. Also, it will remind them that their bill is past due.
Oh, yeah,
And so
no.
we're looking at, even within our system, that we hope to be exploring more in January, if there's not some other methods we can use to remind people to maybe keep them from ever getting the tag.
I like that. I mean, I set alarms on my phone for everything. My Adobe came out the other day and I cried a little bit. So I will encourage you to, as many ways as possible, let that information be known. If we've got to get a Josh in a cute little elf costume or something to do a jingle or a ditty, maybe that's a great idea for a commercial. But people need to know how to see. People need to know that. I mean, because we're controlled by our phones, and I'm like, if it's a calendar reminder, if it's an app that says, you know, teach people how to do it, because I mean, yeah, we'll do it if we know how. So I appreciate the fact that the new system has that integrated in that, because that's game changing. Because I know for me, if I don't set an alarm, it didn't happen, and won't happen. And you know, 66% of our residents are probably feeling the same way. So I'm with that. I just, you know, like I said, I want to make every option possible for as many people as we can. If there's not a way to do that, which is fine because of the amount of dollars it actually takes to make it happen, and that last ditch effort is that touch, you know, this is me helping you, then that's what it is, right? But I do want to make sure that we are offering every educational opportunity to know all the things that this new system will do for our residents to help them, help us, help them.
And I'm not above playing the role of elf on a shelf. If need be, Lisa, I would trust your discretion with how you want to employ me.
This is great dialogue, and I do appreciate Mr. Giles coming here several times to kind of keep us informed. And staff, thank you for putting together this IR. It strikes me, and the data is great too, in the presentation. But it strikes me that all the fees, when you add them up, it's a combination of a late fee, a tag fee, and a reconnect fee. Across all peer cities, it's roughly the same.
Yep.
We don't charge for the late fee, but we do charge for the tag fee. But along what Mayor Pro Tem Bearfield was talking about, seems like it's a short turnaround because it's 45 days for the tag, then 47 days for the turnoff. You're giving the guy 1 day basically to.
And that is something that we could easily lengthen if that
I
is
was
what
thinking, at least I
council
was
would like
thinking
to
a
have.
week or something, and I don't know if
5
that,
business days at least.
yeah, or something like that. And I don't know how that would work. Maybe bring back something.
So we'd have to look at when the next bill, that third month bill would be coming out right after that.
Yeah,
We
that's a
can
good point.
certainly look at that timing and see if there's a way to maybe extend it, even if it's only 5 days or 4 days, if we could extend it more. That is certainly something that's easy for us to look at and adjust our system to right now.
We've made some notes, and we'll have some internal discussions and get something back to you on all those notes. Appreciate it.
Going back to your earlier statistics, though, we tag what percent, and then you actually turn off what percent again?
So we actually tag a little less than 5% of all accounts. That's an annual figure. And we actually disconnect 0.07, so 0.7, not even 1%, so less than 1%. So it's a fairly successful program if you look at it by those numbers, that we're keeping more than, I think it's like roughly 2/3 of the people are not getting their account disconnected.
Great. Any other questions on the IR? Good information.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All right, item 2025-860 is an informal report provided by the airport manager, James Harris, and it's an update on the implementation of the paid parking program at the Waco Regional Airport, and James is here if you have any questions on that.
He's back there?
Does anybody have any questions?
I didn't.
I just want to compliment Mr. Director Harris. Great report. It looks like people are starting to pay attention. I was That was, it was remarkable. The average stay is 4.1 days. Is that what you had on there, Director Harris? It seems like a long stay, which if you're saying that, I guess a week stay and for $25, it certainly beats driving up to Dallas and paying 50 at 250 or something like that for a week. Yeah, it's like right at $50 a day. So I didn't really have any questions. I just, great report. And I guess as time goes by, we'll start getting more and more people on the app.
Yes,
Just-
Not a question, but a suggestion, and if possible, because I don't know what legal requirements are to get things done once you go through security, but I did have an instance, I think it was like the day we rolled it out. I was flying out of the Waco airport, and as I tend to do when I fly out of Waco, I waited until the last minute to get there. And so I was running through, scanned the QR code in the parking lot, and then kind of got to security. I put my phone down and realized when I got through security that, oh, I need the zone number to be able to access the payment option for the parking lot. And the zone number is on the sign that I scanned when I walked in, but now I can't see it. I'm sure most people are more responsible than I am and give themselves time to pause and do that process on the way in. But if there's a way to put the QR code or just a reminder to pay for parking once you enter the airport, either at or once you get through security, I think that might be beneficial.
Thank you, Counselor. So I believe we did add additional signing in the back. I can verify that. And if it's not back there, we can put it back there. But I'm pretty sure we've upgraded our signage, so I'm pretty sure we put some back there. So if you see in the informal report, we're at a slow start. I think right now for last month, we're at 35% utilization in the parking lot, and we're capturing about 65% of the total vehicles that are there are actually paying. So we've contacted the city attorney's office about some legal measures we can implement, ticketing, towing, installing gate arms. We need to redo our parking lots anyway, so we're working on solutions to capture more towards 100% than the 65%.
Great. Thank you, Director Harris. Great report. All right, ECM Holt.
Yep, and the final informal report today is 2025-861, and it's provided by Galen Price, Director of Housing and Community Development. Serves as an update on related work to the strategic housing plan originally presented in 2022. These updates provided semi-annually provide an overview of the progress and work being performed by the task groups created to implement the plan. Progress includes additional properties sold through the vacant property plan and additional deeds executed in support of addressing the tangled title issue. Staff anticipates making continued progress toward completion in areas of property vacancy and density by December 2026. And Galen is with us, I believe, if council has any questions on this IR.
Any questions from council on this one?
I didn't have any questions, but I'm appreciative that we are all leaning into this housing exercise and strategic plan for our city. I've been watching several cities and do different things that will increase the actual units in their communities. You don't have to get up, it's not a question. I saw a community in Houston that was 3D printed and that they just did a groundbreaking on. So it'll be so many different fascinating ways to see how we're gonna enhance and increase the number of housing units of all price points in our community. Also, when we did our inner city visit to Greenville this year, we were captivated by, yet again, a conversation about community land trust. And I know Waco Foundation is leaning into what that looks like. So I anticipate this in progress will have a little bit more heft to it at our next semi-annual report. The only question that I have, which isn't one that must be answered right now, is of the things that are completed, are there things that we need to change? And of the things that are in progress or on hold, are those things still valid? So it doesn't have to be answered now, but that's just a touch point that we can get to and making sure we're on the right path still. Because as the dates change, the needs change. So just wanted to make sure that we're all leaned into what it is that is befitting our community at the time. You know, because, you know, at National League of Cities, there was a whole, several sessions about the changes in housing and community development. And so I know we're on top of it. I know our directors are on top of it and all of that. So I just want to make sure that we're still in line with what our original goals were. But thank you for the work and diligence and leaning into solving for our housing problems.
Let the record show that Councilmember Isabel Lozano is now with us. Great. Any other questions on that last IR? ACM Holt?
All right, great. We have 7 public hearing on today's agenda. Clint Peters, Director of Development Services, will introduce those later in the work session. There are 18 resolutions on tonight's agenda. I'll highlight just 2. Item 2025-874 considers the management and operations agreement with Transformation Waco for the Bledsoe Miller Steam Center that is rapidly approaching fruition. Item 2025-877 considers the annual contract with Waco Family Medicine to provide public health services to residents of the city who do not have health insurance or those who are underinsured. There are 6 ordinances on the agenda for your consideration, all of which come to you on second reading. And if there are no additional questions, that will end the manager's report.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Holt. We will now move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes 2025-867, 2025-868, and Resolution 2025-869 through 2025-884, except for Resolution 2025-883, which will be voted on separately. Are there any other items that council would like to remove from the consent agenda or vote on separately? Okay. The consent agenda then includes 2025-867, 2025-868, and resolutions 2025-869 through 2025-884, except for resolution 2025-883, which will be voted on separately. The next item on the agenda is work session items 2025-862 through 2025-864. Assistant City Manager Holt, would you please introduce the first work session?
Certainly, the 862 will be rescheduled. 863 will be presented by Clint Peters, Director of Development Services, and he will be joined by Laura Wagstaff, Assistant Director of Development Services. And they'll lead a discussion of subdivision and street design tools for improved residential neighborhoods. As part of today's presentation, staff will seek some direction from the council on prioritization and timeline for implementation of these potential tools.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. As you know, Waco and the area within Waco and the areas within the surrounding ETJ have ordinances as well as design standards that are already in place that clearly outline new subdivisions and how they are to be developed. They're standards, they outline the streets, the blocks, the area in general and those requirements. But at the heart of today's discussion is a simple but important question. Do we want subdivisions or do we want neighborhoods? So that's something that I want you to keep in mind as I'm going through this presentation today. The answer to this question shapes not only how our streets look, but how our residents move, interact, and experience their community every day. So again, how do we turn subdivisions into neighborhoods? My goal today is to provide a high-level overview of key tools that can help us build these neighborhoods. Over the past several months, staff has examined the practices of various Texas cities to understand tools that are used that help these communities transform subdivisions into true neighborhoods, places that are safe, connected, walkable, and reflective of Waco's long-term vision. We'll also outline the next steps in this effort to get to neighborhood development. So looking at the current challenges as well as opportunities, we have to look at what is the market wanting? What are the residents of Waco wanting in their neighborhoods versus what what the developer is required to build based on our current rules and ordinances. Unfortunately, if you are just following our current ordinances and guidelines, you're going to end up with a subdivision that may have long blocks, limited connections in and out of the subdivision, gaps in the sidewalk network. Our current ordinances are very limited on where we require sidewalks, and I'll go over that in a little more detail. And all this leads to, I hate to say it, but kind of a lack of that neighborhood character within your development. However, there are opportunities. We can use the subdivision ordinances and street standards as proactive tools by codifying best practices of other cities that have been used that ensure that neighborhood feel, as well as supporting strategic housing and comprehensive plan goals. So the first tool I like to look at is connectivity. Connectivity is providing multiple routes, shorter trips, improved access to where people want to go, including parks, schools, work, play, commercial areas. The benefit of having this connectivity is it does encourage multiple travel routes in and out of the development. It reduces congestion on your major roads by distributing the traffic appropriately. And it also improves walkability as well as emergency access in and out of the development. This is a guiding picture that just don't look too much into detail into this, but follow the red line. So on the left-hand side, you can see a street pattern that is transportation driven. To get from the Purple House to the school, you have to go all the way around onto the Collector Road, back up and around to get your child to school. Versus the picture on the right-hand side, you can see, I mean, it is a more connected street network. It encourages walking to school versus going around and traveling on the streets that probably you do not want your children to walk on. So what communities use is what's called a connectivity index tool. This is a measure of how connected and accessible a subdivision is. The connectivity index is you take the number of links within the development and divide it by nodes. So nodes are the point of connections within the street network. For example, the intersection of two or more streets, or it could also be the end of a street, such as a cul-de-sac or a dead-end street. It also, in some communities, could be where the street bends over a certain degree within that development. Could also be a node. And then the link is the connection between two nodes. So it ranges on a scale of 1 to 2.5, a 1 being a completely unconnected development, similar to a tree branch, versus a 2.5, which is your traditional grid system. So the goal through planning as well as engineering literature, the target range that we want to achieve is between 1.3 and 1.4 for a walkable and connected neighborhood. Here is an example, running the connectivity index of this subdivision, you get a 1.05. You can see you have one street traversing the center and then streets branching off of that and ending. So this is a low connectivity index versus a grid.
What's the?
I think this can remain anonymous
I'm
in
trying
terms
not
of
to
districts. I'm proud of all of our subdivisions.
Is the, tell me again, in that picture, what is what's the node? What's a node?
Yeah, so the nodes would be every one of these intersections as well as the end of
Okay.
them.
So in that particular one, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 3 is 21 nodes, right?
I remember an anonymous planning official once saying that in Spanish, sendero actually means cul-de-sac, and I don't think that was right.
And I probably zoomed in a little bit too. There is a larger area of this development. I really wanted to focus on what the tree branch looks like in this picture. So,
And then link, what in that picture, what is
The link
link?
is going from, I'm sorry, where's my mouse? Going from the node to node. So the link would be the stretch in between two nodes, basically.
So there are 14 links, is that right, in that particular picture?
I believe these are links as well.
Oh, okay. The middle, okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right, now I know, now I got it. I can do the math. Thanks.
And then here is more of your grid system, your traditional grid system, lots, blocks. This is a closer to the 2.5, so it's not a true complete grid system, but you're getting closer. This is a 1.93. And I'll show you what we're achieving later on in the presentation, what the goal would be. So in some of the communities that we looked at, what they are implementing are an actual requirement within their subdivision ordinance for required connections to existing stubs and adjacent subdivisions to help increase that connectivity. Also, a minimum number of access points based on dwelling units. So not just the minimum fire code access, but actual how else is this development connecting based on the number of homes that are within it? And not just homes, but, I'm sorry, not just lots, but dwelling units within that area. They are also setting connectivity metrics such as that connectivity index and establishing this is the range that we want the subdivisions to achieve. Also block length limits, and then if you have a longer block, requiring mid-block pedestrian connection so that you're maintaining that pedestrian connectivity. Some communities actually have a set pedestrian connectivity index and then a connectivity index for the street. And you have both of those numbers having to total that 1.4 at the end. So looking at all transportation modes. Also, network adequacy. So the subdivider, the developer needs to demonstrate that adequacy of the network, typically at the preliminary plat stage where you're seeing all phases of the development come together and as a big picture, not just area by area. The second item that we found communities are using are traffic calming tools. So this is the use of street design and then physical features that slow down vehicles and improve safety for all users. The key word here is, again, it's all users, not just the vehicle traffic, but pedestrians, bicyclists, everybody that is utilizing that transportation system. Example of traffic calming tools, shorter block lengths, roundabouts, bulb outs, narrower lane widths, street trees and islands and visual cues, and curvilinear alignment. The emphasis here is that these are visual cues that that go to the driver's brain to slow down. So just imagine the speed that you're comfortable traveling when you drive down Austin Avenue versus the speed that you feel like you should be driving when you drive down Waco Drive. It's very different. So you're trying to implement some of these tools just to trigger, we need to slow down through this area. And then some of these, and we're going to discuss curvilinear alignment next, and then some others as well. Not only are they calming the traffic down, but they're increasing the aesthetic of the neighborhood at the same time to provide that neighborhood feel. So going into a little more detail, curvilinear streets. So traditional grids, they do have high connectivity, but they also encourage that cut-through traffic. Oh, straight street, we're going to drive right through and get to where we want to go as quick as possible. Curvilinear streets, however, again, creating those cues in the brain, they reduce the vehicle speeds. They also are you're following natural topography rather than fighting against it as far as development goes of that street. Also, it encourages that neighborhood identity, supports drainage and other environmental preservation. The con, however, it may actually decrease connectivity. So the goal is to have what I coined, I didn't really see this anywhere, but connected curvilinear. That's what we want to prefer. We need a system that has some curved alignment, short connections, balances in aesthetics with multiple access routes, but supports both vehicles and pedestrians. Where does that sweet spot between connectivity and the traffic calming? Here is an example, again, a subdivision within Waco. This is definitely high on the curvilinear streets. But the connectivity on this, just because of the way it's laid out, is actually a 1.2. So it has a little lower connectivity than that 1.3 to 1.4 range. So the things that we found when reviewing the other communities, some of the communities called it a traffic calming toolbox, to where they provided different options within their ordinance. Some actually had curvilinear street requirement, to where a certain percentage of the streets in a development had to be curvilinear to help reduce those speeds and discourage that cut-through traffic. Also, some communities had maximum straight street distance lengths noted in their ordinance, and then outlined other approved traffic calming tools, such as on-street parking, curb extensions, raised crosswalks, some of the things that we've already talked about. So again, the goal is a connected and traffic calmed neighborhoods. We got to find that in between. This is another development within Waco. Something to note here, not only you can see some of the curved streets, but you see some roundabouts in there as well. This development, actually measures the 1.4 on the connectivity index. This is right on point where it needs to be. And then as far as what was measuring as curvilinear streets, it's at a 39%. So this development, and I apologize, I don't have a lot of the history on the development, but my understanding, it's not marketed for high-end homes. So these are tools that could be used in various different subdivisions, high-end, middle-end, we can utilize them throughout. All right, next subject I'd like to talk about is sidewalks. Now we're going to focus more on the pedestrian connectivity within the development. Fundamental for accessibility, safety, and health within a development. The benefits of sidewalks: it encourages walking and social connection. It provides safe routes to schools and parks, and supports ADA compliance and multimodal travel. It is important to note, as I mentioned earlier, that Waco, outside of collectors and arterials on the subdivision side of the street, we do not require sidewalks to be constructed. We have language in there now that's, from an ordinance perspective, it's difficult. It basically says, unless determined necessary. Those are those ordinances that are very subjective and are difficult to work with.
I don't know do you know when that ordinance was written?
So originally it was 1998, and then it was updated probably 2005-ish.
I ask because it was in the time when my mother built her house, and they said, you have to put a sidewalk there that goes nowhere.
Sidewalk to nowhere.
Yes. I mean, she was kind of pissed about it, but literally, I mean, it's a long herring and goes to nowhere, and it stops.
Yeah.
Where the sidewalk ends.
Literally. But it's still, I mean, before you get to a street, there's still some space there. But, right, anyway. But, so it was changed to 2005, but still is,
So collector's arterial, so that's why Herring was a.
because it's a,
arterial
yeah,
street.
yeah. Well, that makes sense, but I mean, I think the thing that about it is it has to make sense. Right. And so, as we adjust and we grow, we have to figure out, does this make sense? And I think that's a whole human question. Does this make sense? Is this smart? Are we doing this in a way that will affect not just this generation, but the next, as far as sidewalks and walkability and how we design the things? I mean, it all breaks down to, does it make sense? So I'm happy about this. I mean, I think that we have a whole lot of areas, and a lot of people comment, in parts of our communities that we don't have any sidewalks. No, we don't. And it's a lot of District 1 that is sidewalk-less. And I think that, as you go on with your presentation, I'm sure you'll say the things about the necessities of sidewalks, and so, and maybe give us an opportunity to see how we can advance that without going broke. Okay, go.
Yep. Thank you for those comments, I appreciate it. So what we found within other communities, and I'll show you a table on the next slide, but sidewalks are being required on collectors, arterials, and as you'll see on the next slide, most residential local streets in our peer cities. Sidewalk timing does vary as far as who installs the sidewalk, the developer of the subdivision or the home builder. Again, finding that fine line, what is the appropriate time? One bullet point that I really liked is requiring a pedestrian connectivity plan at that preliminary plat, so that we can see right at the beginning, showing the overall, all the phases together, how is the plan going to be through the development? And maybe leaning more towards a half and half, to where the developer of the subdivision has to install sidewalks within a certain percentage of that development, so that the person that buys that first lot in that development has the access expected to have in that development, not have to wait 5+ years to get that. So anyways, I'm jumping ahead, sorry. Here's the chart. You can see our peer cities. They all require sidewalk, and as you go down where required, most of them, a few exceptions, Abilene has, for their larger 1-acre lots, but most of them are requiring it on all their streets, including their local streets.
And are most of those requiring it on both sides or one side? I mean, some of those are noted.
It varied. Definitely, Temple is arterials on both sides, all streets. Being that it was the developer and not the owner, the developer would be the subdivision, so that would be both sides with the street construction. Okay, so policy direction moving forward, just looking at some different options of things that we can move forward. Again, look at requiring a connectivity ratio for new subdivisions. And then have that discussed at that preliminary plat. That is the key step in our subdivision development, is that preliminary where you are reviewing the big picture. And then formalizing some traffic calming tools and requirements. We can implement various things in the toolbox, or have it like a la carte where they could select different things within their development. Curvilinear street may not be appropriate for a certain smaller tract of land versus some other tools. And then strengthen our access and connection requirements. We do have language in there now that does require like stub outs, but strengthen that and make it a little stronger. Providing an actual collector plan at the preliminary plat. Again, when you have all the phases, see, these are our collector streets. This is how they're tying in to the surrounding development, future development. And aligning intersection spacing with access management policies. And then refine our sidewalk requirements and timing, determine when sidewalks are required, the pedestrian connectivity plan, a preliminary plat, and then address that construction timing. So this is a lot of information. We wanted to bring it to you all first to discuss and open that door, but priority is going to, this is staff's priority order that we feel would be the way in which we would tackle some of these items. Number one would be the sidewalk timing and location refinements, and then looking at that connectivity index, and then curvilinear standards, traffic calming menu, and then access connection thresholds. The key in this would be getting the developer input. We do have a monthly developer meeting. We would present some of these ideas to them. We don't know what the ideal number would be for what's Waco's connectivity index, or what is the percentage of curvilinear streets. We don't have that information until we get out there and start these discussions with the development community and see what is Waco's wants and needs for that. And again, it's just to make sure that these new developments, they're going to be developed as a neighborhood and not just, these are our minimum subdivision standards. And that's what you get, is a subdivision versus a neighborhood. So any questions or comments?
Any questions for staff on this presentation?
Thank you. So this question is specific just to the sidewalk aspect. And it may not be there's so many variables I realize that go into putting in a subdivision, but do you have any approximation for, like, as a percentage of increased cost? Obviously, it's a cost to the developer. Is there any way, and it's not a figure I'm going to hold you to, but I'm just trying to get an idea. Are we talking 10% more?
Services Department, linear foot. I honestly do not know
Okay.
that. It does increase it, and again, it's where that burden is going to be. Is it the cost on the subdivider or part of that home? The subdivider also typically would take that cost and put it into the lot cost as well.
Right.
So there's different recouping mechanisms. I mean, it is an increase.
Sure. It seems like in moving forward this, it's something that we're going to need to kind of decent grasp on, because we will get some pushback on it.
100%.
Have y'all already begun having those conversations with the developers? And are you getting, I mean, what is the response or the feedback that they've been giving?
So we've had some general discussions. I think one of the other things that y'all talked a little bit about on the informal report with some of the density, looking at some other types of residential. So I think these conversations will happen in concert as we look at some new housing options and changing our ordinances for those, as well as some of these design standards. So, but we've had some initial conversations on both of those.
Thank you.
I mean,
And
I
I
know
think that's
that,
been the feedback, is if we're gonna put some additional standards on there needs to be some allowance for some different types of housing as well in our subdivisions.
Go deeper with that.
So lot sizes, you know, the types of housing, maybe some duplex housing, some different housing types as well. And not being so rigid in our zoning ordinances on new subdivisions.
Understand.
I would say that, you know, I think sidewalks in our city were at least more common maybe before 1920. And I almost wish a city council back in 1900 could have had this conversation, because I know it won't retroactively apply to many of the neighborhoods in our district. So it's more of a prospective than retrospective looking ordinance. On that note, though, I think we are not like some of our suburban sister communities here in McLennan County. We're not landlocked, so as we're seeing tonight, we have another annexation item up for vote. I think there's a lot of directions in which our city can continue to expand annexation-wise, or even infill, you know, as we build out, for example, like the former Floyd Casey will be discussed this evening, and some other areas. So I do feel like there is still good to be done with this, and I appreciate the intentionality. I have long been a sidewalk proponent, and I would consider myself a sidewalk maximalist. So I know that if you're talking with a developer and you say, we want you to put in something that you haven't been putting in, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do anything they haven't been doing because it's going to cut into margin.
Well, and then
And I'm
add
sympathetic to that.
Add to the cost to the home buyer.
Absolutely. It transfers the cost to the home buyer, but I do think it's significant enough of an improvement to the quality of life for us to join. It looks like nearly all the mid-sized Texas cities doing this that we consider our peer cities and really seriously consider it. That having been said, I may never get to vote on this, but that's how I feel at this moment.
I have one thing I meant to ask earlier, sorry. When looking at those other peer cities, who, do they generally say who is then responsible for the maintenance and ongoing costs once they're put in?
The ordinance itself that I was looking at did not specify that. The cities that I'm more familiar with is typically the homeowner that is responsible for maintaining that and repairing it afterwards, after it's accepted. But different cities do different methods of that. I can't speak to Texas experience, but I worked for a community where we had just different cost-sharing programs for sidewalks that actually needed replaced, not just repaired, but replaced. But I can definitely, we can look into that further.
Any other comments? Any other observations? I'll just say that, yeah, great presentations, give us a lot to think about here. And I like the way, it seem like fairly simple sort of nuanced changes you can make in these new neighborhoods coming on, because, you know, we are growing, obviously, as Councilmember Bordery said, we're approving, I think, enough space for 3,000 more homes over on the west side. So as we think about what that looks like in our new neighborhoods, like that we're thinking about quality, durability, and value preservation, not only for the infrastructure, but for the homes themselves, you know. I get concerned when we talk about this because it's all good and it's all great, but it's cost something, and you're gonna get, obviously, as we've all mentioned, some developer pushback. And we're going by adding this in, we're going in the wrong direction of making houses more affordable, you know? So there's a continuum, you gotta find it in there somewhere, where some houses are still affordable, because I guarantee you these on the pictures that you showed with the gingerbread or the graph paper or whatever, those are less expensive than the ones with all the curvy streets. So again, finding a good balance in there that makes sense. And then we saw the Pier City study on the sidewalks, but then as we go through this process, this isn't gonna happen this week or this month or maybe next year, but let's make sure we get the Pier City, not just the sidewalks, but on all these kind of standards that we're putting in, because we want to be armed with information as we're talking to, you know, the developers. Hey, you know, Austin already has had this stuff for 30 years, whatever the fact, you know, pattern might be, or, you know, Temple has this, so don't tell me that you can build it cheaper in Temple because we've got the same standard they do, but I know we hear that all the time. But I like your process where you're thinking about it, developer input, community input, Pier City standards, and then thoughtfully going through a process too. Because I certainly like what the end product is. Like, again, a better neighborhoods, quality neighborhoods, and hopefully not with the big delta in the cost of the neighborhoods. So anyway, great presentation. Gave us a lot to think about. What do you consider like next steps is what you want to do? What are you looking for feedback from us on, other than just, hey, this looks good?
It's, moving forward is going to be a collaborative effort, definitely between planning and infrastructure services, to find that middle ground before we even bring some concepts to the development community. But from council, just your feedback today, that was what we were hoping to receive. Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Assistant City Manager Holt, we've got work session 864.
Oh, so Mayor, out of respect for y'all's time and executive session, if it's okay with y'all, we'll move Mr. Peters' review of planning-related items to the business session so that y'all can get back to executive.
Okay. We'll now move to work session 2025-865, council request for scheduling future agenda items. Are there any items that council would like to discuss for future agendas? There being none, we'll now recess the work session and reconvene the regular session for executive session as read into the record by the city secretary at 4:02